Welcome to another episode, a live episode of Prepper Talk Radio. We are radio for the ready-minded. We are the podcast of preparedness, and we focus on our primary three beliefs of God, family, and country as the purpose behind why we prep. I am Scott, and we've got Shane and Paris in the house. How you guys doing today?
Doing good.
Good.
I've been so excited about this episode. All week long we try to plan out a week to two, sometimes even 3 or 4 weeks in advance. This is an episode I love because it gets my whole family involved, whether they know it or not.
Yeah, exactly.
And it has actually benefited extended families, like the aunts and uncles, the cousins, like grandmas and grandpas, your nana, your papu, whatever you want to call. I don't know. What do you call your grandparents?
Papa.
I just always called mine grandma and grandpa, but what do you call them?
Yeah. Papa, Nana, Grammy.
Papa, Nana.
Papa.
What are you called by your grandkids?
Well, I only have one and she can't speak yet, so I don't know.
It's not quite there yet. My mom's side, it was grandma and grandpa, and my dad's side was grandfather and grandmother. So that's how
really?
Oh,
wow.
Very formal.
Very formal.
Yes.
If you don't do the dishes, your fingers will be smacked with the rod of pain. Well, it's funny because like forced family fun time, right? Stealth prepping for the family. The idea is get them prepping whether they know it or not. Get them learning skills. Get them having fun with prepping so that it's not something that they're going to fight against. Because as a prepper, you talk about it a lot. And a lot of you have, maybe a husband or a wife that's really not into this. And this is a way to get them to do things that are prepping related without them necessarily knowing that this is the agenda, right? Like I can go on a date with my wife on Friday night and say, hey, let's go learn some cool wilderness survival skills. And she's game for it. Why? Because I've been preparing her for these things for a decade. Some people, they try to do that and their wife or husband will be like, you're insane. Let's just go get some dinner.
That's not her first choice though, right?
Not always, but I don't do it every time.
Yeah, it gets old. It could get old.
But one of the things that we do all the time, setting up the tent in the house. My kids love it. And guess who knows how to set up a tent now? My 6-year-old. Is she good at it? Not really. But can she do it? Yeah. My wife can do it. My 4-year-old's like, whatever, dude. But that's typical 4-year-old. But getting them started and like using those things, like Mike says, hiking and camping, those are the easiest things, right? Unless they're absolutely, I have an uncle, he and his wife are like, no, if we have to sleep near the ground, we're not coming. And yet the funniest thing is we went and hiked Mount Whitney, which is the highest peak in the lower 48, and they slept on the ground for a night. One night. But it still counts. And then they hiked a mountain and back all in one day. That counts.
Yeah.
Right? It counts. Like every little effort counts. One of our friends, I don't know, Paris, if you've met T-Jack Survival, our buddy, he takes his kids all the time and does wilderness living skills. That'd be Tyler. He's fantastic.
I met Tyler.
You met Tyler? Okay, good. But it's awesome because those kids are so, I can even say indoctrinated in the most wonderful way. They know how to do everything.
Yep.
Firearms, firearm safety,
yeah.
Eat something in the wild. Like you don't really worry about them. It's like, oh yeah, that bug is edible.
Yeah, I think that's the easiest and most obvious first place to start with your family, if you don't already. And a lot of families make hiking, camping, whether it's in a tent or RV, kind of a regular thing. We do in our family, and so it's normal. So kind of the bug out won't be so traumatic when it happens, right? Because we've done that a little bit, right, as a family. There's so many things that we incorporate into that camping experience. And then it's not like camping like we used to when we were younger. We take a tent with the whole family in the tent and worry about bears all night long, right? No, we're in the RV, right? And you got the comfortable things, you got power, you got AC and all that kind of stuff. But you're still making food kind of from scratch than you would otherwise in home. You're living a little bit differently. You're making campfires. You're out there whittling wood. You're sharpening your knives. There's a lot of things you can do in practice for fun on a camping trip.
Yeah, that's
Agreed.
true.
Like you can learn how to do different types of knots, right? And you could do it simply like you could try to like I've I've talked my kids into helping me build snares. Snares that I've designed to not actually work, but to incorporate the knots correctly
Mhm.
and the levers and the pulls just so they know how to use it, but also so that we don't actually catch something because where we live it's illegal. I can't catch something and kill it and eat it that way. I can catch and release with one of them, but the other ones I can't do. But I can still show them how to build it, and they think it's awesome. Dad knows how to catch stuff, right? And now they're starting to learn those same knots. But like same thing with fishing. My daughter's learned how to
Mhm.
tie different knots for fishing. She still, when she catches the fish, she won't touch it, except for like with her finger. Ooh, ooh. And I can't get her to eat it yet. But again, she's 6, right? Yeah, touch my eye. Don't gross me out. But it's fun because like if I'm doing something that they enjoy, but that I can use as a lesson to teach them something, it's a win-win.
Yeah.
And it gets them down the line of preparedness and they don't even know it.
And not just on YouTube or video games, right? When you're out a hunting video game or a fishing video game, but not the same. It's not the same.
Right.
Yes, definitely. You know, survival is not just we live in a suburban more, if you would, I don't know if it's if it really could be advanced civilization, but we definitely live a different lifestyle than those when had wood cabins and you know, you went out and hunted for your food every day. So even teaching kids to survive in the era that we live in, like I've taught my kids how to manage their finances. I've taught my kids how to go grocery shopping. I've taught my kids how to, you know, some of the simple tools and things. I've taught my kids how to sew. I've taught them how to iron. I've taught them how to like beating your head, like ironing board. And you know what I mean? Like, in fact, there's just skills like that are important. One of the things growing up that we would do is, you know, in the case of a fire, we would run drills as a family, and we had escape routes and we had plans. And every time I added something to my kit, 72-hour, 96-hour kit, I would add one to theirs. And so they would see, and I'd show them how to use it. Okay, now I'm adding this to your kit, and this is the pouch I'm putting it into, and this is what it's for. And the other thing too is every day when my kids are like, you know, we have an upstairs pantry, and then we have our 90-day pantries downstairs. And so whenever we run out of anything in our upstairs pantry, which is our everyday, I say, you go get it. You know where it is. Like, but Dad, that's the, you know, it's like it's a cave with all this stuff, you know, there's at least 3 or 4 of everything down there. And I'm like, you go get it. You need to know what's on those shelves down there yourself. And so they'll go down, they'll see it. So it's in their mind constantly that we have this 90-day supply of food. And the long-term storage is a little bit more out of sight, but they know that, hey, Dad knows where it is. Dad knows what shelf it's on. Dad knows like what part of the shelf it's on. Dad, you know, yeah. So I know like all those. My daughter, she was making some spaghetti, and our upstairs pantry was out of spaghetti noodles. So she's like, Dad, there's no spaghetti downstairs. I'm like, did you look in the black bin on the right as you walk in the door, the bottom right on the right hand side? She's like, no. Sure enough, there's like 15 bags of 2-pound spaghetti in there. And she's like, oh yeah, duh. So that's the fun thing, is they get to experience the results of that, which is going to be now ingrained in their life. Hey, Dad always had this pantry for us. Maybe I ought to have it too, as I see the wisdom in it.
So now you need to incorporate that into forced family fun time of food storage scavenger hunts.
Ooh.
We're going to make a meal. Here's what it consists of. You got to find it in the downstairs pantry. And they've got to go find it, and they can't come back up, and they're not going to make the food until they brought back everything on the list.
That's fun.
Right? I remember doing that when I was a kid. I totally forgot about that. My dad would be like, okay, we're going to make this for dinner. And we're like, okay, where is it? And he's like, you got to find it.
Here's the ingredients. Go on a scavenger
Here's the
hunt.
ingredients. My mom and dad would be like, we got it in the pantry. We got it downstairs. Go get in the storage room. Get what you need. But it was, you know, it was funny though. It was mostly, there was always some potatoes because we're originally from Idaho. So there's always potatoes and everything. But like we would go find it. And if we couldn't find it, like we'd find other stuff. And we're like, what? We have dried cheese. We can make our own macaroni and cheese. We don't have to buy boxes. We've got, like, we had all kinds of stuff. And it was like, oh, we found chocolate morsels. We found all kinds of stuff. And we learned how to do make fruit leather growing up. through forced family fun time, right? That's dehydrating food. That's a skill everyone needs to know. So you can like show your family recipes and be like, hey, we should make this? That looks good. Like get them excited about it and totally turn it into forced family fun time. Or like Mike, he fully supports his daughter in nursing school, right? She's the team medic, whether she knows it or not.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
That's legit. Way to go, Mike. Like, my wife is kind of our normal medicine person, and
right, because she watches all the doctor shows, all the medical shows on TV, right? And so
she watches more like how to get away with murder stuff, and so that kind of worries me.
Same with my wife too. Right? We should group together, guys. And
I learned that one of the ways to get rid of somebody is give them Gatorade that's been spiked with antifreeze.
There we go.
Now I'm very like,
to buy more life
I don't drink Gatorade anymore. It just doesn't happen.
Was it
because I don't know if I've pissed anybody off that week.
That's funny, dude.
But dude, like you could do so many things. Like navigation. I learned navigation because my birthday presents were hidden from me, and I had to use a compass and a map, a rudimentary map that my dad drew up to find my presents. You know how that has helped me in my life? I am the least directionally challenged person in my family now.
That's awesome.
Because of that forced family fun time.
Plus, it causes you to like be a problem solver, like, solution oriented.
Yeah. In our family, what we've done on occasion is I'm always pointing, okay, which way's north, which way's southeast, west, and wherever we are, I'm always trying to bring that up. Okay, which direction are you facing? And some are constantly, I don't know. Well, how do you figure that out? How do you figure out which way is north? That's where you got to start, right? Okay, now how do we get home? Okay, Allie, drive us home. Point us the way home. Where do we turn? Here and there, and let them navigate. At least something simple that way. Get their bearings first, north, south, east, west, and then how do we get home from here? Right? That's pretty comforting to a young child that they know how to get home. Regardless where they're at. So.
One of the funny things I would do is, how kids always say, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there? Over and over. I'd say, look outside. Does anything look familiar to you? Does it look like we're home? Does it look like we're near home? Do any of those things look familiar from the last time we drove this road?
I wish I could do that, but my kids don't remember any of that. They're like, well, my son, we got all the way to our house. He's like, no, this is the wrong way. I want to go home. This is the wrong way. I want to go home. Drive up the same road we drive up almost every time. And when we get to our driveway, he goes, oh, wow, we're at our house. Granted, he's 4. But it doesn't, you've got to keep doing this stuff. You can't just do it once and hope whatever it was that you're trying to train him will take.
That's where the game I Spy comes in, right?
That's a great game.
Right. That is called practicing situational awareness. I Spy, right? So maybe think a little bit deeper. How can I incorporate situational awareness into the game I Spy? So maybe I'll try that some more on our next trip.
Another thing, I know I didn't do it, but my my martial arts trainer was telling me about his dad. As they would go to the store, he'd say, okay, now how many people are sitting in their car waiting in the parking lot? How many people are wearing blue? How many people, what are the exits? Those little fun games can be cool too, especially as you get older, the kids that are a little older, then they can be aware of those things. They can look around and see what's going on. I mean, situational awareness is key. There's so many people that get attacked or get taken out because they weren't paying attention. And the robber or the bad guy kind of knew, hey, I could sneak up on this guy fairly easy because they're not looking around. They're not paying attention.
Yeah. And if all you were to do is just make eye contact with that person, most likely they'd eliminate you from their pool of potential targets. Yeah.
Have you guys ever watched the show Psych?
I did. Yeah. A long time ago though.
There's flashbacks in that show that basically showed. So the premise, for those of you who are listening who haven't watched that show, the premise is this guy's a fake psychic detective. And he's so good at being a fake psychic detective because he has the most insane awareness, observational awareness and memory. And it was drilled by his dad, who was a detective. And so he was in one episode. He shows he's in a restaurant, and the dad's like, "How many people are wearing hats?" And he's like, "Don't turn around, don't look. How many people are wearing hats?" And he's like, 4. And the dad's like, "Wrong. There's 5." And the kid goes, "No, there's this guy over here. There's this guy over there," without turning around. "There's this guy over here. There's this guy over here." The 5th guy took his hat off, and it's on the counter. And his dad's like, looks over and is like, "Oh, all right, you're correct." But it's like that kind of like level of situational awareness. You can get your kids to some pretty crazy, impressive stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
It's good habits to get started on. Yeah, especially now with our day and age, it's very important to be aware of your surroundings and everybody who could be a potential problem. Yeah,
I mean, human trafficking. I mean, it's a super real issue, and if we can teach our people to be aware of that, our families, our kids, and our spouses to be aware of that kind of stuff, it might save lives. Yeah.
Here's another one that I always look forward to as a kid, and I still look forward to. Right, power outages. Right, for the power just to go out spontaneously, unplanned. You have no idea what's happening. Powers are out. Woohoo! Right, go get the flashlights out and then realize, oh, batteries are dead. And where do you find the batteries? Yeah, just I think that's kind of a good impromptu lesson for things that could happen spontaneously without expecting it, whether it's power outage or really anything else. Learn not to panic. Learn that you know what to do next, that their mind is clear, that they can make a decision on, okay, what do I do next? This happened. Okay. Think through it and make a decision. And, like you're saying, Paris, and I wanted to get to that as well, is problem solving skills. How do we incorporate that into our teaching our kids and like camping and starting a fire and fishing? Those are all kind of problem solving skills. And once they have a basis of those things, they can say, well, I learned how to do this. I can figure this out. Right. So,
yeah, it's a confidence builder more than anything. And that's the best part of any of this.
Yeah. I just had the chance and opportunity to teach my son. He turned 16. And so I was teaching him how to drive. And I said, some of these cars on the road aren't going to do anything, but you need to be prepared in case they do. And you need to run some what if scenarios. So the car next to you, in the lane next to you, what if they swerved? What would you do? What if the car ahead of you hit the brakes? What would you do? So I would run as we were driving along. I'd say, what if the car behind you starts accelerating and is not stopping? What are you going to do? And so I'd do those what if scenarios with my son in the car. And so I hope now that he's got his license and he's driving on his own, he's remembering to pay attention, because what if a car pulls out from their driveway and they don't see you and they keep going, and you got to be ready, like anytime, any moment. It may never happen. Then that's what being prepared is about, is that you don't, it's like insurance. Everybody thinks that insurance is a waste of money, but because most things don't happen, car insurance, homeowners, all those things, most of the time you don't ever have to use it. But when you need it, oh boy, are you glad that it was there.
Yeah. Well, to answer Mike's question, suggestions for wives to help get wives into prepping. One of the hardest things, I think, is to get someone into prepping who's not worried about things, right? That's kind of where most people start. They start with the worries. And the easiest way past that, I learned this from a scoutmaster when I was a kid. He did 2 to 3 day power outages at his house. And he lived at the end of the street, so that if the power went out at his house, he convinced his wife and kids that they were on a different line. And he'd pretend radio in to find out what's going on, and then tell them, yeah, we're not going to have power for a couple hours. So let's go ahead and make dinner and do whatever we need to do. And he tricked them. Well, it turned into something that he would do a couple times a year, and it would get longer and longer. And I was just like, you gotta be kidding me. He literally, that's what he did. And when his wife kind of got smart to it, she told us that she looked forward to it. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. She's like, no, because then my kids aren't whiny and complaining about everything. They're just like, oh, what do we do? They kind of freak. They like freeze, and they're just like, well, I guess, what do we do? Okay, I need some water boiled. You know where the camp stoves are. Go get the camp stoves, bring them in. We're going to set up a couple stoves. I need some water boiled so we can start making dinner. I need this. Don't open the fridge because the power's going to, we don't know how long it's going to be out. So don't look at the fridge. If you want something to eat, you think about it first. Can I eat something that doesn't need to be pulled out of the fridge, or, and those things alone are some of the most incredible skills you need as a prepper for when power goes out long term, because you don't want to be opening and closing the fridge, right? You don't want to lose your food because you're doing dumb things.
Yep.
And I think also, like you're saying, Paris, is maybe play that what if game with the wife too, but maybe not as be as obvious, right? And maybe watch the news together, watch something together, and say, oh, what if that happened here? What would we do to prepare for this? That would really suck if that happened here. Maybe we should, and plant an idea, and then let them come up with a suggestion.
I got a text at work today from my wife, kind of a scenario that actually happened locally, and it was, does anyone know what's going on in this area around 500 West, north of 2600 South? Holy cow, sounds like a bad accident or something. There's sirens going off everywhere. And then another post right after that, what's going on at the school? I heard yelling and tons of sirens. I turned. So the whole neighborhood jumps into a panic. What would you do? How could you use that as a good training opportunity to get somebody more focused into prepping? I lived in Littleton when Columbine happened. And if you haven't heard the song "We Didn't Start the Fire," he redid it and actually included Columbine in it, among other newer events. And I was like, wow. And it got me thinking. Parents couldn't go to the school to pick up their kids. Everything was blocked off. Some of the kids had ran out of the school across the field and got to, there's a seminary teacher, and I think it was his house that a lot of the kids got to. But the school was being shot up. Kids were being shot up. And that's a real world scenario that has happened and played out over and over and over again since then. This could have easily been one of those. Thankfully, it was a false alarm. But you can use those as training incidents. What would you do? Do you have a plan? Paris, you've got kids in school. You've got kids in school, Shane. What would you do?
Well, I talked with some of my Leo friends, law enforcement officers, and they, one guy's on SWAT, and another guy is a former high-level officer. He was in a lot of special ops groups, but they said when you're allowed as a parent, you can go on there, but when the cops arrive, you need to tell them, hey, I'm blue. So they know you're a friendly, because you don't want to be dropped thinking have them thinking you're a bad guy. Because there was I don't know if you remember, but several months ago, my son and I did a little bit of because he had his high school had a real it was a threat, and it proved to be a false alarm, but they treated it like it was real. And so all the kids were locked in and boarded up, and then the grade school, which is across the street. And I was like, dude, what if I go over there? I've been trained to do a little bit. I'm not as good as a full-blown Leo necessarily, but I've been trained. And what if I go and help? And they're like, you can, and you should, and you get over there, but don't just be a Yahoo cowboy. You got to know what you're doing and have some training. So go figure out if you want to learn how to protect your family that way. Get trained. There's some things you got to know and to be able to handle a firearm that you need to be aware of. And if you're trained and ready to go and you want to be part of the solution, be part of the solution.
Yeah, I think, for us, it can be challenging to find fun things to do that aren't expensive, right? Okay, let's go to the zoo, or let's go to a movie, or let's go, it's always spending money, right? When I'd rather spend money on preps, right, to get more prepared or to save money or whatever. I think it's a good idea to say, hey, tonight, let's learn how to make candles, right? Let's learn how to do something like that, which is fun, costs a little bit of money, but it adds to your preps, So the book I have, which I love this book, Back to Basics. This is what years? This is like 70s or Reader's Digest. Some of these good old books.
And if you want that book, go to preppertalkradio.com. We have it listed on our free stuff page as a clickable link where you can go buy it.
Is that in there?
Yep.
Oh, awesome. So yeah, this has one about making candles in here. So it's just, again, I like to have printed things, not just jumping online. Of course, that could be your first resource. Jump online and learn how to make candles, but have it printed form as well.
Okay, do you guys know what Pinterest is?
I've heard. Yeah. Cool, yeah.
Okay, good. You're not living
kind of
under
gone
a
by
rock.
the way.
But there's
Is that still a
huge
thing?
movements right now. Like there's Etsy where you can go make hand stuff, like make stuff and sell it on Etsy, right? Like Pinterest is a place where you can like pin all the things you find that you want to like do later, right? My wife has cooking things. She has adventure things. She has. This is a simple way to get somebody into prepping is to actually do a shared pin board. I know, guys, you're not, and I'm not more really a Pinterest guy, but pinning things on a shared page with my wife has gotten us to do things, like making candles. Go on historic trips and see how they made things in the olden days. What's funny is that's becoming more and more popular to do now. People want handmade stuff. And if you can go learn some of those hand skills,
It's true.
Together on a date, power to you, because now you know how to you're not just prepping and getting candles made. Now you know how to make candles for if you actually are in a long-term scenario where you need candles.
And it fills the date night requirement as well.
Say that again.
And it fills the date night requirement as well.
Right? Date night.
Another,
and you can go Dutch oven cooking at the same time.
Not that Hollywood is that great, but sometimes they have some of these great survival movies and end of the world doomsday movies. And there's
my wife hates those. She won't go see them.
She won't go see them. Well, here's another option then, or an idea, is that there's a lot of crazy things happening in places where you would never think that would happen. I mean, I remember years ago that somebody was saying that there was and it wasn't even that long ago. This is why it's so funny that the news cycle is so fast that people forget. Well, that was too long ago. It was like last year. I think it was Kansas or something. There was a huge flood, and they're like, never had a flood in Kansas. That's tornadoes or something. So there's things, and just recently in the last 10 days or a week, there was a huge flood in New York. You could literally row a boat down the street. I mean, who would have thought that you'd have a flood like that in New York? So that's one thing to do for family members and say, hey, look, there's some wild things happen in some areas that you would never think or would happen. Maybe, and then they say, well, that would never happen here. Well, that's what they thought. Like, and what's interesting too is that, as we all know who have been in the prepper world for a little while, there's about 80% of situations can be handled with almost anything you prep with. So like, let's say that maybe a flood won't happen in your area, but a tornado would. Well, prepare for the tornado and you're probably going to be 80% prepared for a flood. You know what I mean? So you don't have to necessarily let the cat out of the bag that you're preparing for a flood too, but hey, throw in a little sandbag, here and shovel there, whatever, so that you have it available to you. That's one thing that I think is awareness brings that change. And people who have their head in the sand or aren't aware, and you don't want to do it in a doomsday, hey, look, these people are, kind of what way, but you want to just do it in an instructional, educational way. Let people know, hey, crazy things are happening out there. I'd just like to get better prepared in case. And hopefully that will come across in a way that they'll get it.
Or even, if you're interested in genealogy and maybe you still have grandparents around. I don't, but I think it would be a great resource to reach back to them and say, how did you do this back in the day? How did you do that? Hey, can you show us how to do that? Learn how to do that. And, I'm always saying, look to the past to prepare for the future. And if you can do something more simply, like when I make a recipe, when we bake something at home, I try and find a recipe that is simple as possible, the fewest ingredients, because if we're making that when we don't have power, when we're using our long-term supplies, I'm going to try and at least have most everything of those ingredients rather than a very complex recipe that requires a dozen ingredients. So that's something that I've kind of done with my families. Okay, let's do this very simply. And typically the recipes are just as good, if not better, the more simple it is, especially biscuits.
Right.
Simple biscuit recipe is the best are the best. Yeah.
Your biscuits are phenomenal.
I got some great biscuits.
What's funny is how are spices preserved?
Drying.
They're dried. They're dehydrated.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they last so long. That right there gets that cranky spouse who doesn't want to get prepping a little bit farther into prepping. Hey, let's get more spices so we have them. They don't go bad, at least not easily. Right? It's not going to hurt to have extra. That's a great way to do it. I love you went into date night, but also mentioned Mike mentioned he took his family on a road trip. But like we went on a trip recently and we took the kids to old historic towns and looked at pioneer and like 1800s era stuff, and they were just amazed with it. And my daughter actually learned how to make rope.
That's
and
awesome.
she actually spun her own rope, and we made 20-foot sections of rope, and she got to keep some. And she's like, every time that rope is out, she's like, I made that. And it's like, yeah, she did. That's awesome. Now she knows how to do it. And it's not hard, but you just got to try these things and do different things.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy. Like we did another family history trip a little recently, and we learned how, while we were out there, we learned how they lived in dugouts, and it was pretty impressive. And it's like, those are things anybody can make. You just have to work hard for it. So you've just got to try different things. And if your family doesn't like certain things, find out what they like and adapt events around it to make it prepping centric. You don't have to be like, hey guys, we're going to go do a prepping vacation. Because right out, if they're already anti-prepping, they're going to be like, yeah, no.
That'd be a prepcation.
A prepcation. There you go. We've got staycations, we've got vacations, and we've got prepcations. But it's funny because like if they're anti something, focus it around what they're pro, what they want, so that they'll do it, or at least be more inclined to do it.
Yeah.
Or just turn the power off for a few days and see how they fend them for themselves.
Eat
something tasty while they're over there starving.
And coordinate with your neighbors in case you need to maybe get their power out too for a minute. So she calls, oh yeah, our power's out too. Okay, yeah. I think it's a good idea as a family to sit down and say, okay, let's run a couple what if scenarios. What if our house got burglarized and we were here? What would we do? Where would we go? What window would you leave outside? What if somebody was coming through the house? Where would you hide? And then even in a situation like that, it's important to come up with a code word that your family knows. Hey, if you're hidden and you're safe and the bad guys are gone and somebody comes in to give you to find you, they got to give you the right word in order for you to come out of your place. And so there's just things like that are important to think about, because the reality is that you might live in an area that is relatively safe right now, but I bet you the people that were in some of these cities that have been like, was it Oregon that had that whole community that was taken over by the mob group, and like people couldn't get in and out of it like last year. I don't remember what they called it. I can't remember what they called it, but you don't know what you're going to live in at some point, and you got to be ready and get your family prepared. That's the point of being prepared, is what to do before something happens.
Are you talking about when they created like their little free town or whatever it was called?
Yeah. That's the one. Like they took over a whole neighborhood.
They only let woke people in and out. Yeah. You never know. Like, you've got to do something with your family. You got to get creative. I think this is the biggest thing, is like, a lot of times we get this question a lot. What can I do to help get my family more involved? And it's like, dude, I don't know your family. We can tell you what we've done and what's worked for us and what we've heard. But your family, what they're into. Make it align with prepping somehow.
Yeah.
Tweak your prepping to align with them. If you've got kids that are super athletic, cool. Give them different types of athletic challenges that correlate with prepping. Transferable skills. It's crazy. It's like there are more things going on now than ever before. I remember years ago there was a tornado in Salt Lake City, Utah. They said that could never happen, and guess what? It happened. Right? Yep. There's flooding in New York right now. There was people stranded on the roads in, was it Texas, and froze to death?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Just a few years ago.
And Kimberly just says right here, we did not think California would get a hurricane. Hurricane Hillary went through Southern California just last couple months ago, if not
Yeah.
not sooner.
Yeah.
It's a good thing it wasn't named Hillary Clinton because people would have definitely been gone.
Well, I think they made a meme about it. They put Hillary's head on there as it traveled through the map.
Well, here's a great comment too. Is Marcy? They made this an adventure, and that word is overused. That's one of those words where I say you keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means, right? But with that, having the attitude that this is an adventure, right? Set it up so that hey, we're going to make this an adventure. This is going to be fun. It might be more challenging than I'm making out to be, but like you're saying here, Mike, your family would choose a hotel and a beach. Mine would as well. And maybe you need to build your bug out location on a beach somewhere, right? So you're already set up. You bug out on a boat, right? Your bug out vehicle is a boat. I know you're not necessarily maybe bug out on the Great Salt Lake, huh, Mike? But out to Antelope Island or something. But yeah, I mean, for example, where we have our bug out, it's close to a lake with a really nice beach, and my family loves to hang out at the beach. It's not the ocean, but it's a nice mountain lake beach, and we just love to hang out there and just do nothing. And that's one of the things my family loves to do the most is just, hey, let's go up to the lake and let's sit on the beach. Let's put up the canopy. Let's dig holes in the sand and just do nothing. Read a book.
Okay. Transferable skills, putting up hammocks, right? Ropes and knots, putting up little tent cover things, same as building a shelter, right? Digging holes, prepping for latrines.
Yeah.
It's transferable.
I was really impressed. My daughter dug this hole. We were there for 2-3 hours. The entire time she was digging this hole, she didn't stop, and it was an impressive hole.
Oh wow!
But she didn't give up.
Is this your youngest?
Yeah, my youngest. It was quite impressive, and she was very proud of that hole. I tell you. So I had to, Mike. I had to adapt. Perfect. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't like the beach. I don't like going to the ocean. I don't like the heat. I don't like the salt water, the waves, the danger of the ocean, and so forth. The sharks, whatever. But I adapted that, and I didn't do it myself. It just happened naturally. And it's a place that works for us. So
that's awesome.
I think it's important to pass on these skills. Like we know. One of the things that really, I think that is the reason why we've lost these skills there's a whole books now called The Lost Ways, and there's all these lost art forms and the lost, we've lost all these great skills. And so don't you dare do that from you. If you're going to go learn them because you know that they're lost and you want to gather them and find them and bring them in, don't you dare do the same thing that you've complained about to your kids. Like if your parents or great grandparents or, these things got lost, and you find them, make sure they get transferred to your kids. Maybe if you've got to do a weekly family, in our church, we have a weekly family home evening. We do it every Monday night. Well, we don't actually do it every Monday night. We like to do it every Monday night.
Here's what we do. Well, we kind of do it.
Well,
no, you don't actually do it at all.
Anyways, don't do as I say. Do as I say, not as I do. This is
right.
Okay, so pick a time on a regular basis. The one thing I know for sure we do every week and every night, we plan the next day. We talk about as a family, we go through the calendar, but once a week, once a month, whatever it is, whatever interval you're going to have it be, make sure that you're teaching these things and say, hey, we got a lesson. The lesson this week is we're going to learn how to make candles, or the lesson this week is we're going to learn how to do. My daughter goes to these little kid groups, the youth group, and they come up with these great activities just like that. And she comes home and she shows us, look, Dad, what I made. And it's like, thank goodness that these leaders in our church are teaching some of these skills. And why couldn't we do that on our own to our own kids? There's no reason to stop. And it's fun. And a lot of these crafts can be turned into prepper crafts. Yeah, they could be actual really usable things and good things.
And maybe even a way for them to make a little bit of money on the side, right?
Yeah.
And, sell those on Etsy or whatever. But, I think a part of that I wanted to bring up before we're done is that, you guys came up and helped me build the Quonset, and my son has been coming with me very regularly and helping me out with that in the greenhouse. And I think it's very important to learn how to build things, with your hands, use tools, especially shelters, especially, a place to live. Again, it kind of builds a lot of confidence. And then every time we're up there, like, man, we built this. You and me, we built this. It's awesome.
Builds a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
Skills are the things that make people adaptable. And those events that build skills are the memories that mean the most. Like, do something to build a skill. Like, even if it's faking a flat tire. Oh, guys, I need your help changing the tire.
Mm-hmm.
Now they know how to change a tire.
Yeah.
At the very least, something like that is more valuable than you just doing it by yourself all the time. Engage
True.
them to do things with you. You know, Whited Outdoors. This is perfect. Have a fire pit at home and try different fire lays and ways to start a fire and try cooking over the fire.
Mm-hmm.
Not just s'mores. Everybody can do s'mores. That's a given. And not just hot dogs on sticks, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we talk about Dutch ovens. We talk about hobo dinners. Like, there's so many different things you can do, and just get creative and have fun with it.
Foil
You can even
dinner.
learn how to smoke food and preserve it for long term.
Foil
Yeah.
dinners are the best too.
Yeah.
They can be. Yeah.
Hobo dinners.
Well, like
I call them
Marcy's
hobo
saying,
dinners, but yeah,
Oh,
foil
that's
dinners
what
are the
we're
same.
sorry.
well, like Marcy is saying here is, if you treat the situation right, it can create long-lasting memories and traditions that will continue on. I think that's a great comment. I love it. It's and kind of like with our lake thing with the beach, it's turned into a great tradition and a bug out location.
Amen. Well, I think
There's so many things you can do with your family. Just do it, and that's the thing. Is a lot of these people are like, well, and it's never too late to start. Well, sorry, I didn't create that tradition with my family, and now my kids are already grown up. Start it. Start a new tradition. There's no traditions had to start somewhere. The tradition, whatever tradition we have, at some point, it was the first time anybody ever did it. So start to have those new traditions and say, hey, listen, and then get people involved, because the best thing you can do to really get buy-in is to say, okay, listen, what do you want to learn about? What would you think is cool? And then you'll get the material based on what the people want, what your kids or what your family wants to know about. And then you can start teaching them those things. And I think that if you get them involved and you ask them questions, okay, if a burglar came in, what do you think we should do? Well, we should probably go over here, Dad, or this, and whatever. That way it gets their buy-in, gets them thinking, rather than you be like, hey, if a burglar comes in, this is what you need to do. And they're like, Dad's preaching at us again with this weird, burglar stuff. So if you there's a way to do it that's more effective. And I highly recommend that you find out. I mean, asking questions, getting their involvement, getting their buy-in, having them come up with the answers is going to be the most effective way to get people to have a long-term change in their outlook.
So in work-related things, one of the best ways we found to help people retain something they've learned is to gamify it. The number one most effective way to have somebody retain what they've learned is to have them teach it to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Second best way is to gamify it, turn it into a game, help them keep score, pit people against each other to see who can do it faster, right? You got shows like Survivor where they have a fire building challenge to see who gets to stay in the game and who gets kicked off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something as simple as that. Make things into a contest, make things into a challenge. I remember when A Minute to Win It. Do you guys remember that game show came out and it was like on and then off, like within a year? I don't know. It just seemed to viralized, hit the world, and everyone's doing these little weird 1-minute games at every family event. And I'm like, dude, fire events. Who can build a fire the fastest, right? Oh, okay. We're going to cook only on a can of tuna tonight. You better hope that we have tuna in oil and not tuna in water, because otherwise you're not cooking, right? Like, make something into a game, make it fun, make it challenging, make it memorable, and just be happy and joyful about it. And they're gonna feel that energy, and they're gonna be more willing to do it if it's fun.
Yeah. And what's cool too is sometimes you can get people to invite their friends over. Hey, we're going to do this cool thing. Invite your friend over, and let's. And then that gives them a little bit more incentive to be and have a good attitude, because they're there with their friend having a good time.
And then their friend's gonna go home and tell their mom and dad, "Hey, they did this. They're so cool." And then they're gonna be like, "How do we get cool?"
Yeah,
we gotta go talk to Harris and see what he and his wife are doing.
Spread the word. That's one way to recruit, is to get the kids involved. That's definitely a positive thing to do.
But at the end of the day, like, whatever you're doing, try to involve your wife and kids, your husband and kids, your significant other, your family, your neighbors, like whoever you can get involved to make prepping a community and a group thing. That's the whole goal of this episode. Find ways to make it fun, find ways to make it enjoyable, and do it in a way that they're already mindset prepared for. Because then you're going to hit a lot less resistance.
Yeah, do it
If
at
you
their
just
level.
go guns ablazing, we're going to start prepping. We need to go buy more rice and bread. And we need to go buy not bread, but rice and wheat and beans and da 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 da. Well, why? Why are we buying this stuff?
That could be scary at
Stuff
that
we
point.
already use. No, go buy 15 pounds of rice and go buy 5 pounds of beans and say, hey, I want to learn I found some really cool recipes. I want to learn how to make these. And so I bought the stuff to add to it, the primary staples. Well, guess what? You just gave yourself another week's worth of food. I think that's the easiest way to incorporate it. But whatever you're doing, make sure it is awesome, or people just aren't going to care enough to get involved.
Yeah,
Prepping should
With
be
that,
a way of life, and that's exactly what you're talking about.
yeah,
So
exactly.
let me remind you guys, this episode is brought to you by our good friends over at Patriot Switch. Go to patriotswitch.com/prepper talk to find American-made products. These are your normal household stuff. It's a membership. You can get in, you can buy the stuff you need, your soaps and everything else. I love their deodorants. I also love their little snack bars. Hold one up right here. They're awesome, and it's not supporting the woke agenda. So check it out, learn more. Go to Prepper Talk. Sorry, go to patriotswitch.com/Prepper Talk to learn more about that. And thank you for tuning in. Thank you for everyone who participated today. And if you guys have questions, you can always find us in our group, Emergency Prep and Self-Reliance, over on Facebook. And some of the books, Shane held up a book earlier. Some of the books we recommend are on our resource page. You can also download our free guides on basically how to get started in prepping, how to organize your pantry, how to get your bug out bag, I'll throw in air quotes because we just call them kits. Whatever type kit you're looking for, a 96-hour kit or more, we got them there. Check it out, preppertalkradio.com, and then play with the menu. There's so many good resources there. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for staying ready-minded and getting more prepared with us, your hosts at Prepper Talk Radio. Until next time, stay ready-minded.
See you next week.